Hello my friends. Here I'm going to show you how I constructed the framework to my dome ceiling. My existing ceiling measures 10 foot 3 inches, so I decided I'm going to lower the ceiling by 2 foot. So around the perimeter I nailed 2x4 nailers 2 foot below the ceiling height. I need supports to hold the superstructure of the dome and the new ceiling rafters. So here I'm going to locate where my ceiling rafters are and tie these supports into a ceiling rafter. I'm going to put 4 of these suspended down around the perimeter of the dome. I need to get a very accurate location of where these rafters are. So I'm using a nail to drive through the drywall and hopefully hitting the ceiling rafter. It takes about 3 or 4 to get a positive location of that rafter. Then I'm using a box cutter to cut out the profile of a 2x4, which is going to extend up through the ceiling and then screwed into the ceiling rafter. The ceiling rafter also is my roof truss. These supports are pre-cut to the specific length, which is going to give me the 2 foot lower, plus I have a line marked on the end that will give me a reference line to the ceiling to show me how far to extend it into the ceiling. Then because this support was notched for a 2x4, I made an additional support to connect into this for the strength at the end where it's holding onto the 2x4 of the new suspended ceiling. Once the base framework is held up and suspended, the next thing that has to be done is nailers at every 16 inches for screwing the ceiling drywall into the new ceiling. Making an accurate cut is very helpful if you're working by yourself. Here these boards are holding themselves in location until I can get them nailed. I have 2x4 hangers nailed into the 2x4 around the perimeter of the room. This is giving me a saddle or a pocket that will hold the workpiece while I'm putting it up. The parabolic arch that I made has to have a smooth transition into the 7-foot circumference circle. And to make that transition cut, I constructed a jig that will hold each of the trusses at the proper angle and allow me to make repetitive cuts. A reference line is drawn on the end where I want the cut, and the holding jig has to be adjusted so that the saw blade will hit that reference line. I noticed a slight wobble when I was making that first cut, so I added an additional piece of wood to act as additional support when I'm making this cut. Also, I'm not cutting to a knife edge at the terminating end. I'm leaving it about 1/8 of an inch thick, just so that I have some little bit of mass for nailing. these ceiling rafter supports that I'm installing, they're being screwed into the roof truss rafter, and to do that I have to climb up into the attic, and I'm running screws through the 2x4 and from the opposite side from the rafter end, so that the screws are crisscrossing, and I'm putting about 6 to 8 screws into this. These are going to hold a tremendous amount of weight, not only the wood framework but the drywall, which is very heavy. The additional support is going to be from the perimeter 2x4s that are on the wall. So these four center supports aren't holding all the weight. Most of the weight will be carried through the wall structure. I have one screw starting on the reference line on an upward angle. I'm inserting that vertical support up to the reference line on the ceiling and running that screw in. That's temporarily holding that until I can get up into the attic and put the additional screws for the support. Once I have these 4 vertical supports well secured, the next step is to accurately lay out a center square that the 7-foot diameter circle will fit in there perfectly. This is a pretty critical step right here. If this isn't square, the circle is not going to be an easy installation. So care should be taken with this. While leveling one of the ceiling rafters, it caused one of the vertical supports to extend down below the ceiling. So here I had to trim it off so it doesn't protrude below the bottom surface of that rafter. Once the center square opening is finished, mark dead center of each of these sides. These are going to be a reference line for setting the quarter arc in. And here is the first one. Nail to the reference line on the one side, and then the pieces may need to be flexed to hit the line on the opposite end. Make sure that the center of this arc doesn't droop down below the ceiling line, the new ceiling line. Once you are sure that it's okay, then nail both ends securely. At some point I need to remove my old lighting. This is a perfect fit. There's the rough cut opening. The height of this 7-foot diameter circle is 6 inches. I cut a dozen 4-inch blocks, and these are pin nailed into the perimeter of the circle. These blocks are going to be used to reference the arcs when I'm putting them up there, and it will help hold the structure while I'm nailing it. These are only temporary, and they're going to be removed once the arc is nailed into the perimeter. I'm nailing my first 4 arcs onto the center hub. I'm using 18 gauge 1.5 inch long pin nails. An arc of this diameter, we can only manage 4 of the arcs nailed to the center hub. If this was a smaller diameter dome, we could get away with nailing all 12 arcs onto the center hub and then placing that into the circular structure itself. Here it's a pretty big job just handling the 4 arcs at one time. The 12 blocking that was nailed to the perimeter is going to come in handy right here. These are what's going to hold the 4 arcs in location once I get it pushed up and secured there. You want to make sure that each of these arcs are dead center on the support. This is kind of critical movement here because this is going to determine the width of the individual sheets of drywall that will be secured to them. Once you are comfortable with the position of the arcs, the location of the arcs, secure the ends of them into the circular perimeter, and then when you have them all installed, then remove the blocking that's underneath. The remaining 8 arcs are an easy installation. Here you secure them one at a time and pin nail them as you're going, securing both the top at the hub and at the perimeter. Framework's complete. Thanks for watching, my friends. Bye-bye.